The night sky above the alien planet burned with purple lightning. Ethan Cole, a human engineer, stumbled through the mud near his crashed shuttle, his suit flickering with sparks. He had fallen from orbit after a sudden system failure, and now he was alone on a world no one had mapped. Rain poured down in glowing blue drops that shimmered like liquid light. Each drop sizzled when it hit the ground, filling the air with steam. Ethan wiped his visor, trying to scan the area, but his system only showed static. He muttered to himself, "This isn't just rain. It's energy." The storm around him was alive, the air humming with strange vibrations. He tried to fix the power relay on his arm, but the moment he touched it, a bolt of blue energy shot through his hand. He fell to his knees, the ground shaking beneath him. The rain seemed to grow heavier, pressing down like a living thing. And then through the glowing mist he saw a shape moving at first. He thought it was just light playing tricks on him, but the shape drew closer, forming a tall, graceful figure made entirely of shimmering liquid. Her eyes glowed like molten silver. Her body rippled like water under moonlight. When she spoke, her voice echoed inside his mind. Soft yet commanding. "You drenched me. Now fix what you started." Ethan froze, his heart racing. He looked around, expecting to see someone else, but there was only her. The alien woman stood still, the rain sliding down her translucent skin as if it were part of her. He tried to speak, his voice shaking. I don't understand." "I didn't do anything." Her expression hardened. "Your crash broke the flow of the Nexus," she said. "The balance of my world is dying because of you." Ethan took a step back, confused and afraid. "The Nexus? What are you talking about?" he asked. She lifted her hand, and suddenly the ground around them lit up with glowing blue veins spreading out in every direction. "This planet lives through water energy," she said, her voice both angry and sorrowful. "You burned the sky with your fire ship, and the water remembers." He stared at the glowing streams beneath his feet, realizing she wasn't speaking in riddles. His ship's reactor had overloaded when it crashed, releasing radiation and energy into the storm. He must have damaged something vital to this planet's life system. "I didn't mean to," he said quietly. "I can fix it." "Maybe." She stepped closer, her silver eyes narrowing. "You will fix it," she said, "because now you are part of it." Before he could react, she reached out and grabbed his hand. The moment their skin touched, light exploded around them. Ethan screamed as warmth surged through his arm, racing into his chest. The world spun, and for a moment he saw images inside his head. Vast oceans glowing under alien skies, temples of crystal submerged beneath waves, and creatures made of pure light swimming through the depths. Then it was gone, replaced by the sound of her voice again. Softer this time. "The connection is made," she said. "You are bound to the Nexus now." Ethan staggered back, breathing hard, his veins glowing faintly under his skin. "What did you do to me?" he shouted. "I did nothing you did not begin," she replied, her voice calm. "You touched the living current." And it answered. Ethan could feel something strange pulsing inside him, a rhythm that wasn't his heartbeat. It was like the planet itself was breathing through him. The storm began to fade, but the air stayed thick with energy. She looked at him again, this time with a trace of sadness in her glowing eyes. "My name is Lyra," she said, "guardian of the water Nexus. If the flow is not restored soon, everything here will die." Ethan looked at the wreckage of his ship, half buried in the glowing mud, and felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. He was responsible even if it was an accident. But how could he fix something he didn't even understand? Lyra turned and began to walk toward the distant horizon where the rain glowed brighter. "Follow me," she said. "The heart of the Nexus lies beyond the storm." Ethan hesitated. Glancing back at his ship, he could try to contact Earth, but there was no signal, no chance of rescue. The only thing that moved in the distance was Lyra, her body glowing like a path of light in the darkness. He took a deep breath and followed, his boots sinking into the wet ground. As they walked, strange shadows shifted in the mist. Ethan could feel eyes watching them, but he couldn't see anything clearly. Lyra stopped for a moment and whispered, "We are not alone." Her words sent a chill through him. Lightning flashed again, revealing shapes moving in the storm. Not human, not like her, something else entirely. And for the first time since his crash, Ethan realized this planet held more than beauty and mystery. It held danger, and it was already awake. The thunder rolled, the ground trembled, and Lyra turned toward him, If you wish to live, she said, then fix what you started. And as the storm swallowed them both in light, Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The storm finally began to fade as Ethan followed Lyra through the glowing mist. The rain stopped falling, but the air was still thick with energy that made his skin tingle. They walked across a wide field of shimmering water that reflected the stars above like glass. Every step Ethan took left behind a faint trail of light. He could still feel the strange pulse inside him. The bond she had created when she touched him. It was both frightening and comforting, like something alive was now moving within him. Lyra walked ahead without looking back. Her form shifting like liquid silver, Ethan tried to keep up, his boots splashing softly in the glowing puddles. He finally spoke, his voice uneasy. Lyra, what is the Nexus really? She stopped, her head turning slightly, her eyes glowing brighter. The Nexus is life, she said. It is the heartbeat of this world, the memory of every drop, every creature, every living cell. She looked toward the horizon where a soft blue light pulsed like a star beneath the clouds. It flows through everything, and when your ship fell from the sky, it broke the current. Ethan frowned, running a hand through his wet hair. I didn't mean to harm anyone, he said. It was an accident. Lyra's voice softened. Intent does not change what is done, she said. The water does not understand accidents. Only balance, her words cut deep, and Ethan felt a sharp ache of guilt. He glanced back at the faint smoke rising from his wrecked shuttle, now far behind them. I can fix things, he said, trying to sound confident. I just need to understand what's broken. Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then you must see what your fire has done. She led him to a cliff overlooking a vast lake. The surface of the water below shimmered faintly, but parts of it had turned dark. Still and lifeless, strange bubbles rose from beneath, bursting with small flashes of red light. Ethan stared in shock, realizing the damage was spreading. Lyra's voice trembled. This is the corruption, she said. It eats the current and poisons the living flow. Ethan knelt beside the edge, his reflection glowing faintly blue. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't know. Lyra stepped closer, her hand hovering above the dark water. You cannot repair this with your machines, she said. You must understand the current itself. Before he could respond, a deep rumble echoed across the lake. Ripples spread outward, and the dark water began to move on its own. From beneath the surface, shapes started to rise, tall, shadowy figures made of the same glowing liquid as Lyra. But twisted and darker, Lyra's eyes widened. No, they are already awakening, she whispered. Ethan stepped back. Who are they? They were once guardians, she said quietly. But when the Nexus broke, they lost themselves to the corruption. The figures began to move toward the shore, their hollow eyes glowing red. Ethan felt panic rising. We have to run, he said. Lyra nodded, her hands glowing as she summoned a wall of blue energy that rippled like water. The corrupted guardians slammed into it, sending waves of pressure through the air. Go, she shouted. The barrier won't hold for long. Ethan turned and followed her through the mist as the sound of cracking energy filled the air. They ran through glowing tunnels carved into the cliffs, the walls pulsing with faint blue veins. Ethan gasped for breath, the energy inside him reacting to the chaos outside. What are those things? He asked between breaths. Lyra didn't slow down. They are what happens when the current is broken, she said. And soon there will be more. Ethan looked at her, his voice urgent. Then tell me what I can do. I can't just run forever. She stopped suddenly and turned toward him, her expression sharp. You cannot fix the Nexus alone, she said, but you can reach its heart and maybe it will choose to forgive you. He stared at her, confused. Choose? You mean it's alive? Lyra nodded, her voice almost a whisper. It listens, it remembers, it decides. Her gaze softened as she looked at the glow still running through his veins. It marked you, Ethan Cole, the moment you touched the storm. Ethan looked down at his hands, watching the faint light pulse with his heartbeat. What does that mean? He asked quietly. Lyra hesitated. It means you are now part of the current, she said, and the current does not let go. A distant explosion echoed behind them. The corrupted guardians had broken through. Lyra's body shimmered brighter, her form almost blinding. She turned toward the sound and whispered something in a language Ethan couldn't understand. A wave of energy burst from her hands, sealing the tunnel behind them with glowing crystal. Then she looked at him again, her tone urgent. "We must reach the Temple of Flow before night returns," she said. "The darkness grows stronger in the absence of light." Ethan nodded, still trying to understand everything that was happening. He followed her deeper into the glowing caves, their steps echoing softly. The air grew cooler, and faint voices seemed to whisper through the walls. Lyra spoke again, her voice lower now. "The others will come soon." Ethan frowned. "Others?" She looked at him, her silver eyes darkening. "Your kind," she said. "They will follow your signal, and when they arrive, they will destroy what little remains." Ethan stopped walking, his heart skipping a beat. "How do you know that?" he asked. Lyra turned away, her voice cold now. "Because this is not the first time humans have brought fire to a living world." Her words echoed through the cave, mixing with the soft hum of energy around them. And as Ethan followed her into the darkness, he couldn't shake the fear that maybe she was right. Maybe this planet wasn't the only thing that needed saving. Maybe humanity did too. The tunnel stretched endlessly beneath the alien ground, glowing faintly with soft blue veins of energy. Ethan followed Lyra in silence, their footsteps echoing against the stone walls. The air shimmered with strange whispers, like the sound of running water mixed with distant voices. He couldn't tell if they were real or just in his mind, but every time he blinked, he saw faint images of the past, flashes of the world before his crash. Full of light and peace, Lyra moved with quiet grace, her liquid form flowing like a wave through the narrow paths. Ethan finally asked, "Where are we going?" She glanced back at him, her eyes glowing softly. "To the Temple of Flow," she said. "It is the heart of the Nexus, the last pure source of life energy left." As they walked deeper, the hum of energy grew stronger, vibrating in Ethan's chest. His veins still glowed faintly from their connection, and sometimes he could feel Lyra's presence inside his mind. Calm, steady but sad, he didn't understand how it worked. But he could sense her emotions like ripples across still water. They stopped at a large chamber where the walls shimmered with strange patterns that seemed to move on their own. Lyra placed her hand on the wall and it opened like liquid glass, revealing a spiral staircase made of light. Ethan stared in awe. "Your world is alive," he whispered. Lyra nodded slowly. "Every drop remembers," she said, "but memory can turn to pain when broken." They descended the glowing stairs until they reached a great underground lake. It was vast, stretching into darkness, its surface calm and glowing faintly with the same soft blue hue. At the center of the lake, a tall crystal spire rose from the water, pulsing gently. "The Temple of Flow," Lyra said quietly. "It was built long before my people had form. When the current first awoke," Ethan stepped closer. Amazed, "It's beautiful," he said, but as he spoke, his communicator beeped softly in his suit. A signal, weak but real, flickered on his wrist display. His heart skipped. "Wait. That's impossible," he whispered. "Someone's out there." Lyra's expression darkened. "Who?" Ethan adjusted the frequency, his eyes widening when a voice broke through the static. "This is Commander Reeves of the Earth Exploration Division," the voice said. "Ethan Cole, respond. We've tracked your beacon." Ethan froze, the sound of his own people sending a mix of relief and fear through him. He turned to Lyra. "They found me," he said, his voice uncertain. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They should not be here," she said coldly. "Their presence will bring more harm." Ethan shook his head. "No, they can help. They can get us off this planet, fix the damage." But Lyra stepped closer, her tone firm. "Your kind does not fix. They take." Before he could answer, a blinding light filled the chamber. From the shadows near the lake's edge, armored figures appeared, their suits black with blue visors. Laser sights swept across the walls, and Ethan felt a wave of dread. One of the soldiers stepped forward, his voice metallic through the helmet. "Target located," he said. "Engineer Ethan Cole, an unidentified life form." Lyra moved in front of Ethan, her body shifting like a shield of water. The soldier raised his weapon, but Ethan shouted, "Wait, don't shoot." "She's not the enemy." The soldier ignored him, his tone sharp. "Step aside, Cole. That creature is classified as hostile." Lyra's eyes burned brighter, her voice echoing in the air. "Hostile? It was your fire that broke the sky." Streams of water lifted from the ground, swirling around her like ribbons of light. The soldiers aimed their rifles, and Ethan stepped between them, shouting again, "Stop! You'll make it worse." The commander's voice came through the comms. "Cole, stand down." "You don't understand what you're dealing with." Ethan turned toward the armored figure nearest him. No, you don't, he said. This world is alive and you're about to kill it. The air trembled with tension. Lyra looked ready to unleash her power, and the soldiers had their fingers on the triggers. Then the ground beneath them cracked open, sending a shockwave across the chamber. Water erupted upward, glowing red instead of blue, and strange tendrils of energy reached out from the lake. Lyra gasped. The corruption has reached the temple. The soldiers opened fire as the red water took shape, monstrous figures made of liquid darkness. Roaring like thunder, Ethan fell backward. Watching chaos unfold, Lyra raised her arms, forming a shield of blue energy that clashed with the red wave. The soldiers were thrown back, their lights flickering as the corruption attacked both sides. Ethan scrambled toward Lyra, shouting, "What do we do?" She looked at him with fierce determination. "Protect the core," she said, pointing to the crystal spire at the center of the lake. Ethan nodded and ran toward it, his boots splashing through glowing water. The pulse in his chest matched the rhythm of the crystal. Faster, stronger, louder. It was calling to him, like it recognized him. Behind him, the soldiers fought desperately while Lyra battled the red creatures. Her light dimming with every blast, Ethan reached the spire and placed his hand against it. The moment he touched it, a surge of energy rushed through his body. Images flooded his mind again. Lyra's people, the creation of the Nexus, and a warning. He saw humans standing beside machines, draining the same glowing lake centuries ago. He saw destruction, betrayal, and war. Then a voice echoed in his head, ancient and calm. "The current remembers." He gasped and fell to his knees, his body shaking with light. Lyra shouted his name, her voice full of fear. The red energy retreated slightly, like it recognized the power awakening inside him. The soldiers stopped firing. Stunned by what they saw, Ethan stood slowly, his eyes glowing with the same blue light as the Nexus. The voice spoke again. "One human must choose the flow or the flame." Lyra looked at him, her expression a mix of awe and fear. "You have been chosen," she whispered. By the Nexus itself. The chamber trembled again, the lake boiling with energy. Ethan realized this was no longer about survival. It was about destiny. And somewhere deep inside he could feel it. The real enemy wasn't Lyra. It wasn't the soldiers either, it was something else. Something watching, waiting, hidden in the heart of the corruption. The temple shook as the waves of blue and red energy crashed together. Ethan stood at the center of the chaos, his hand still glowing from the Nexus crystal. Lyra was fighting to hold back the red corruption, while the human soldiers tried to regroup behind broken walls of energy. The air smelled like ozone and burning metal, and every flash of light painted the chamber in violent colors. Ethan could feel both forces pulling at him, one from the Nexus, calm and ancient, and another from the corrupted current. Dark and furious, he could hear whispers again, thousands of voices calling his name. Some were pleading, some were warning, and some were laughing. He covered his ears, but the sound was inside his head. "Ethan Cole," a deep voice said, "you carry the fire, and the flow calls to you." Lyra appeared beside him, her form flickering from exhaustion. "You must listen to the Nexus," she said. "It will guide you, but you must choose which path to take." Ethan stared at her, his voice trembling. "What do you mean, choose?" She pointed toward the soldiers who were still firing at the shadows forming in the red mist. "Your people will destroy what they do not understand," she said. "If they reach the surface, the current will die forever." Ethan's heart pounded as he looked at the frightened men in armor. His team. His kind, they were human, just like him, lost and desperate to survive. But Lyra's words echoed in his mind. Humans destroy what they fear. The ground cracked again as the red water began to rise higher, forming tall tendrils that reached for the ceiling. One of the soldiers screamed as the corruption grabbed him. Pulling him into the liquid darkness, Lyra raised her hands, sending out a wave of blue light that sliced through the red mass, freeing the man. But the attack weakened her even more, her form dimming until she almost looked transparent. Ethan caught her before she fell, his hands glowing where they touched. "You can't keep fighting like this," he said. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "It is not my fight anymore," she whispered. "It is yours." Ethan looked around. The chamber was falling apart, cracks spreading across the floor. The crystal spire pulsed faster now, as if the Nexus itself was waiting for his decision. He could feel its power flowing through him, offering strength, knowledge, even control. But deep down he knew power always came with a cost. Lyra, he said quietly. "If I take this energy, what will happen to me?" She hesitated, her voice soft as rain. "You will no longer be only human," she said. "The current will change you, shape you, bind you to this world." Ethan stared at his glowing hands, torn between fear and duty. He remembered the Earth, the endless wars, the greed, the hunger for energy that never stopped. He remembered why he had joined the exploration mission, to find a new beginning for humankind, not another place to conquer. The soldiers shouted his name. "Cole, get away from it." Their commander, Reeves, aimed his weapon at the crystal. "We're taking this energy core back to Earth," he ordered. Lyra's voice grew sharp. "If they do, this world will die." Ethan turned toward Reeves, his heart racing. "You can't do that, sir." "You don't understand." Reeves shook his head. "I understand perfectly," he said. "Unlimited energy. The end of human dependence on dying worlds. We can save billions." Ethan stepped closer, shouting over the noise, "By killing trillions here?" The commander's eyes hardened. "This planet isn't alive, Cole. It's just matter." Lyra flinched as if struck, her light dimming again. "The arrogance of fire," she whispered. "Always burning what it touches." The red corruption surged again, striking toward the soldiers. Ethan reacted instinctively, raising his hand, and a burst of blue energy exploded outward, forming a protective barrier around them. The soldiers froze, staring at him, their faces hidden behind helmets, but their fear obvious. Reeves took a cautious step back. "What are you doing, Cole?" Ethan didn't answer. He could feel the nexus guiding him, the power flowing through his veins like living water. He turned to Lyra, who was watching him with a mix of awe and sadness. "This is what you meant, isn't it?" he asked. "The nexus chose me because I caused the damage." She nodded slowly. "Only the hand that breaks the flow can mend it," she said. Ethan closed his eyes, letting the power spread through him. He could see the corruption spreading through the world like veins of poison. Reaching every ocean and river, he saw the truth. If he didn't stop it now, the planet would collapse in hours. He opened his eyes again, glowing brighter than before. "Reeves," he said calmly, "get your men out of here." The commander hesitated. "Cole, you're not giving me orders." Ethan's voice grew stronger, echoing with something not entirely human. "Leave now, or none of us will survive." Something in his tone made Reeves falter. He motioned for his soldiers to retreat, muttering a curse under his breath. When they were gone, Ethan turned back to Lyra. The nexus pulsed faster. Responding to his presence, Lyra reached out, touching his face gently. "If you do this, there is no return," she said softly. "Your life will belong to the current." Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe that's what it needs. Someone who understands both fire and flow. Lyra's eyes glimmered with tears of light. "Then the choice is made," she whispered. Ethan stepped forward, placing both hands on the crystal spire. Blue light burst through the chamber, drowning out the red corruption in waves of brilliance. The ground shook violently, and the lake below began to spin into a massive vortex. Lyra shielded her eyes as Ethan's body began to lift from the ground, his form glowing brighter and brighter. The whispers returned louder this time, merging into a single voice that filled the temple. "The flow accepts your choice," it said. "But every gift demands a sacrifice," Ethan screamed as the light consumed him, his human form fading into a shape of pure energy. Lyra fell to her knees, her hands pressed to her heart. The red corruption began to vanish, washed away by waves of pure blue light. The nexus crystal stopped pulsing and became calm again, glowing softly like a resting heart. When the light faded, Ethan was gone. Lyra stood alone in the silence, the water calm once more. A single drop of glowing blue liquid rose from the surface and hovered in front of her. Inside it, she saw Ethan's reflection smiling faintly. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "The choice is made, and the current lives again." But deep within the planet's core, something still moved, something ancient and unseen, watching, waiting for the next spark of fire to rise again. The silence after the storm felt endless. The great temple of the Nexus stood still, glowing softly in shades of blue and silver. Lyra knelt beside the crystal spire, her body trembling, her eyes searching the air where Ethan had vanished. There was no sound, no voice, only the gentle hum of the current returning to balance. For a long time she stayed there waiting, hoping that maybe he would come back. But the chamber was empty, and the light around her flickered weakly. She whispered into the air, "You fixed what you started." "Human," her voice trembling. But the current took you. The water beneath her feet rippled, and a faint glow began to spread across the lake. Lyra turned, sensing a new presence within the current. The light grew stronger, brighter, until a shape began to form from the water itself. It was not the same as before, and it was brighter, sharper, more alive. When the glow faded, Ethan stood there, but he was no longer fully human. His eyes shone with the same silver-blue light as the Nexus, and his skin seemed to shimmer faintly like liquid. Lyra gasped, unable to speak. He looked at his hands, flexing his fingers. His voice soft, "I can feel it. Everything." He could feel the pulse of the world beneath his feet. The rivers, the air, the living current that connected every drop and every being. He could even sense Lyra, her energy, her heartbeat, her thoughts. It was as if their connection had deepened beyond touch. Lyra stepped closer, her eyes filled with awe and disbelief. "You are part of the flow now," she whispered. "The current accepted you?" Ethan smiled faintly. "I guess I didn't have much choice," he said, his voice echoing slightly as if two beings spoke in one. Lyra reached out, touching his hand, and when their skin met, a wave of light passed between them. The connection pulsed stronger, their energy blending into a soft harmony. Images flashed in Ethan's mind. Lyra's memories, her people, her world before the corruption, and Lyra saw his, the earth, the wars, the dying cities, the desperation of humankind searching for hope. For a moment they shared everything. Their pain, their memories, their dreams. Then the light faded, leaving them standing close, bound by something far greater than words. "You understand now," Lyra said quietly, "why we fear your fire." Ethan nodded. "And I understand why you protect the flow." He looked toward the crystal spire, which now pulsed calmly. "It's alive like a heart," he said. "It remembers everything," Lyra smiled faintly. "Yes. And now it remembers you too." Before they could speak again, the ground shook beneath them. A distant rumble echoed through the temple, followed by a low humming sound. Lyra tensed, her light dimming. "Something is wrong," she said. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling through the current. He could sense movement, not from the Nexus, but from above. The human soldiers who had fled earlier were still on the surface, and with them came machines, drills, extractors, weapons powered by the same stolen energy they had recorded from the Nexus. "They're trying to take the core's energy," Ethan said, his voice heavy with anger. "They didn't leave." Lyra's expression darkened. "They never leave," she whispered. Ethan clenched his glowing hands. "Then we stop them." But Lyra shook her head. "If you destroy them, the current will turn against you." Ethan looked at her, confused. "Then what do we do?" She met his eyes. "You must balance both. Protect them without destroying what they do not understand." Ethan stared at her, realizing how hard that would be. He was part human, part current now, a bridge between two worlds that had always been at war. The two of them left the temple, rising through glowing tunnels that led to the planet's surface. The closer they got, the louder the noise of machines became. When they emerged under the alien sky, Ethan saw the Earthship hovering above the water. It was enormous, metallic, its engines burning with orange fire that scorched the clouds. Dozens of drones floated around it, lowering energy siphons into the glowing lakes. Lyra looked horrified. "They're draining the current," she said. "They will kill the flow again." Ethan's body pulsed with light as anger filled him. "They won't," he said quietly. "Not while I'm here." He stepped forward, raising his hand toward the sky. A beam of blue energy shot upward. Hitting the ship's engines, the fire turned to steam, the power flickering out as the great vessel trembled. The soldiers inside panicked, shouting commands and trying to reboot their systems. Ethan's voice echoed through the air, calm but powerful. "Leave this world before it leaves you." His words resonated like thunder, shaking the ground and the sea alike. Lyra watched in awe as Ethan's power spread through the sky. He was no longer just human. He was the current itself. Alive and aware, but she could see the toll it was taking. His form flickering, his energy burning faster than it could heal. She shouted, "Ethan, stop. You're becoming one with it." He turned to her, his glowing eyes soft. "Maybe that's the only way." He lifted his hand again, and the waves rose high, wrapping around the Earthship like living arms. The ship broke free from the water and shot upward into the clouds, vanishing into the dark sky. The storm quieted, the rain fell again, This time soft and silver, Lyra ran to Ethan, who was on his knees, his light fading. She caught him as he began to collapse, his body flickering like a dying flame. "You can't leave again," she whispered, her voice shaking. He smiled faintly. "I'm not leaving," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm just changing." He reached up, touching her face gently. "You said the current remembers." Lyra nodded. Tears falling like drops of light. "Then remember me," he said. "Because I'll always be here." His body dissolved into a mist of blue light that spread through the air. The rain turned brighter, the river sparkled again, and the entire world seemed to breathe in relief. Lyra looked up, her heart breaking and healing at once. She whispered to the wind, "The bond awakens." And so does the current, and in that moment, the world was alive again, glowing, breathing, whispering his name through every drop of rain that touched her skin. The world had grown quiet after the storm. But silence on Lyra's planet never lasted long. The air shimmered faintly, carrying strange vibrations that rippled through the lakes. Lyra stood at the edge of the glowing water, her reflection broken by soft waves. She could still feel him there in the current, whispering like a forgotten melody. "Ethan," she said softly, "you became one with the flow, but I need you again." The current answered her call with a faint light beneath the surface. It was weak at first, like a flickering candle in the dark. But then it began to spread, glowing brighter. Pulsing like a heartbeat, Lyra stepped closer, and the water rose gently to meet her hands. It wrapped around her wrists like ribbons of living light. A familiar warmth filled her chest, and she heard his voice, soft and distant. "Lyra." "I'm still here," her eyes widened, tears of silver forming. "Ethan," she breathed. "They are coming back." Above them, the clouds parted with a violent roar as the Earthship descended again. It was larger, heavier, and this time it carried weapons made from the same stolen Nexus energy. Beams of orange light cut across the sky, shaking the ground with each strike. Lyra fell to her knees, her body dimming under the energy waves. The humans had learned from their defeat, and now they were ready to destroy the entire planet to take the power they wanted. But the current began to stir again, brighter and faster from deep within the planet. The flow surged upward in massive spirals of light. And from that energy, a shape began to rise. It was Ethan, but different now, larger, made of living energy and light. His form shimmered like water and lightning fused together. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the air and the waves alike. "This world is not yours to claim." The Earth soldiers froze, watching the giant glowing figure rise from the sea. Their scanners failed to read his form, their weapons overloaded in seconds. Lyra stared in awe. Ethan's energy was not only part of the current now. He was the current. He raised his hand and waves of light swept across the battlefield. The energy siphons shattered, and the machines melted into the ground like dust. But the humans didn't retreat. They activated their last weapon, the Oblivion Cannon, a beam strong enough to tear through planets. It powered up with a blinding red glow, humming like a monster ready to strike. Lyra shouted, "Ethan, it's charging." He turned toward the sky, his glowing eyes burning with determination. "Then we finish this," he said calmly. The cannon fired. A beam of red fire shot downward, burning through clouds and water alike. Ethan raised both hands, creating a barrier of light. The beam struck it, and for a moment everything turned white. The air screamed, the ground trembled. The lakes boiled with energy. Lyra was thrown back by the force, watching helplessly as the red beam and the blue shield clashed. The energy tore through the air, sending shockwaves for miles. Ethan's voice echoed in her mind. "Lyra, I can't hold it alone." She crawled forward, pressing her hands against the glowing ground. "I'm with you," she whispered, "always." She reached out, letting her essence merge with the current again. The planet itself responded, rivers, oceans, and clouds turning bright with silver-blue light. Together they pushed back against the red beam. It wavered, flickered, and then cracked apart with a thunderous explosion that split the sky. The Earthship began to collapse from its own weapons' power. Fire and smoke filled the heavens as the ship's engines failed. It fell slowly into the sea, burning as it sank beneath the glowing waves. The light from the explosion spread across the planet, washing everything in calm silver light. When the waves settled, Ethan stood again in the center of the water, his glow dim but steady. Lyra floated toward him, weak but smiling. "You did it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You saved us all." Ethan looked around at the calm horizon. The planet saved itself, he said softly. We only reminded it how. Lyra smiled faintly, but she could see he was fading again. His form flickered, turning transparent like mist. She reached out, grabbing his hand. No, she said. Not again. He smiled gently. You don't understand, Lyra. This is what I am now. He pointed to the water around them. Glowing gently. I'm part of everything. Lyra shook her head. Tears shining. I can't lose you twice. He touched her cheek softly. You won't, he said, his voice a whisper carried by the wind. Every drop of rain, every wave, I'll be there. His light spread outward again, merging with the water until only a faint shimmer remained. The world grew quiet, peaceful and alive once more. Lyra stood there. Feeling his presence in every breath, the flow sang softly. Not in pain this time, but in harmony, and somewhere within it she heard him laugh, warm and human. A promise whispered through the wind. I'll always be with you. The planet was calm again, wrapped in soft light that shimmered across the endless horizon. Gentle waves rolled over the crystal sands, carrying the last echoes of battle away into the deep. Lyra stood at the shore, the wind brushing against her glowing hair, her reflection dancing upon the silver water. It had been many cycles since the fall of the human ship, yet she still felt his presence. The world had healed, rivers ran pure again, and the nexus pulsed like a beating heart beneath her feet. But her heart ached quietly, filled with a silence that no song of the current could replace. Sometimes when the rain fell, she heard his laughter in the droplets. Sometimes, when the wind passed through the caverns, she felt his warmth again. She would close her eyes and whisper his name, and the air would hum softly in reply. Ethan, she would say. The flow remembers you, and every time a wave would rise gently from the sea, glowing faintly as if answering her words. But tonight felt different. The air carried a strange vibration, one she hadn't felt since the battle ended. The lakes shimmered brighter, and the stars above seemed to move slower. As though watching, Lyra turned toward the water, her heart racing. From the center of the glowing sea, a single column of light began to rise. Twisting like liquid glass, the current swirled around it, pulling the air into motion, and then, through the ripples of light, a figure began to form. At first it was only a shape, tall and bright. Then it took clearer form. A familiar face, a familiar smile. Ethan, Lyra whispered, her voice breaking. He stood before her, made of light and water, his eyes glowing like two distant stars. He looked at her with that same gentle warmth she remembered. Hello again, Lyra, he said, his voice soft but echoing through every drop of rain that fell. She stepped closer, afraid he would vanish if she blinked. I thought the current had taken you forever, she said. Her voice trembling, Ethan smiled. It did. But it also gave me back. He looked around, watching the water flow around them. This world lives because of you, Lyra shook her head. It lives because of us. She reached out her hand, and when their fingers met, light rippled across the water. Spreading far beyond the horizon, Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the pulse of the current flow through him. I can't stay like this for long, he said. The current needs balance, and I am part of it now. Lyra looked down, her heart heavy. Then why did you come back? He smiled softly. To keep my promise, she frowned, confused. And he touched her chest lightly where her heart glowed. When I became part of the flow, I told you I'd always be with you, he said. But I also promised to help you rebuild. He turned toward the horizon, where the first light of dawn began to rise. The humans will come again, he said quietly. Different ones, not soldiers this time, but seekers. Lyra's eyes widened. They'll try to take the Nexus again. Ethan shook his head. No, not all humans are like them. Some want to understand, not destroy. He looked back at her, his expression calm. You'll have to guide them, Lyra. As you guided me. She hesitated. And if they hurt us again? He smiled faintly. Then remind them what happens when they forget balance. The sea around them began to glow brighter, rising like a dome of living energy. Ethan's form started to fade, his edges dissolving into mist. Lyra's voice shook. No, please, not yet. He placed a hand over her heart once more. I'll never be far, he whispered. When you call my name, I'll answer through the rain, through the rivers, through the current itself. Her tears fell, turning to small lights as they touched the water. I'll keep the world safe, she promised. For you, he smiled one last time. No, Lyra. For us. His light scattered into thousands of shining fragments. Each fragment drifted across the sky, becoming a new constellation of stars above her. Lyra watched until the last spark vanished, her heart full of both sorrow and peace. She stood there until the sun rose fully, bathing the sea in golden light. Then she whispered to the sky, "The promise remains. From that day forward, the world thrived again. The flow carried songs of balance and harmony. And when the humans finally returned years later, they found a living world that greeted them with glowing oceans and gentle storms. They spoke of a guardian spirit who guided them, a woman made of light, and a voice that came from the rain. They called him the one who became the flow. And her name, Lyra of the Current, became legend among the stars. Every night when the two moons rose, the waters would shimmer brighter, and those who listened closely could still hear two voices whispering through the waves, one soft and ancient, the other human and warm, bound forever by the promise they made, a promise that the current would never forget, and love would never fade.